Hi, this is Steph with Belladonna Dyes, and today we're going to make an off-center spiral. Start by smoothing the wrinkles out of your shirt the best you can, and then decide where you want the center of your spiral to be. And this one, I'm choosing to go down towards the bottom left of the shirt. And then I just give it a little pinch. And I'm going to be using the microwave splatter guard for this one, and I got it from Amazon, and there's a link for it down below in the description box along with everything else that I use for tie-dye, so make sure you check that out. And I'm using a hemostat for this one, so I put it on the first click. It does not need to be overly tight. You don't want to tear a hole in the center of your shirt. I give it 2 or 3 twists, and then using my opposite hand, I create the pleats in the shirt and I make the spiral. So I kind of use my hand to pull the shirt out and then around. So out and around, and it creates a nice spiral. I go as far as I can with the splatter guard, and then when I can't go any farther, I unclick the hemostat, I hold down the center of the spiral, and I gently wiggle the hemostat out. I like to secure my spirals with rubber bands. I just find it to be quick and easy. And these rubber bands are what I call my favorite rubber bands, and they just work perfectly for spirals. And I got them from Amazon, and there's a link for them down below as well. Once I get a few rubber bands on, I like to create a nice tight spiral. That's the one thing about the splatter guard, it doesn't make a nice tight spiral. So if I just left it as it is, if I tried to pick it up and move it, it would fall apart. So what I like to do is pull on the loose tails, tucking them into the nearest rubber band. And I'll spend a lot of time doing this, you guys. Keep in mind I have this sped up to save on time, but I could do this for 10 minutes. And it really does make a difference in the final product. So I just pull on the loose tail, tuck it in, and then go around to the next loose tail and tuck it in, and I go around and around, pulling on all of those loose tails until when I pull on them, the shirt doesn't move anymore. And if it starts to buckle up on you like taco in, that's as far as you can go, because if you try to make it any tighter, it's going to just completely fold in on itself. I know it sort of seems silly to be so methodical about this, but it really does make a difference. And I know it just looks like I'm just going around and around and around and nothing's really happening. But in just a moment, all of a sudden a really nice tight spiral is going to emerge that I can pick up, move, flip, whatever, and it doesn't fall apart on me. And once I get it to how I like it, the next step is to build some type of an ice barrier. And for this project, I'm using the silicone cake molds. And not all of the silicone cake molds are the same. So I have 3 different sets from 3 different companies, and some of them don't like to connect in. The Woo Home brand is my favorite, and they're just the thickest out of the bunch. For a long time they weren't available, but they are available again. And like with everything else, the link for them is down below in the description box. And then I like to mark out my pattern using a washable marker. And I just realized, you guys, that these are not washable markers. So thank goodness I chose green for the green dye that I'm going to use. Now it's time for the fun part and my favorite part. We get to add the dye. So I'm just adding the dye in the pieces of the pie. A couple of these greens I've never used before. Other than making the swatches for them, I've never added them to a shirt or anything. And one of them is wasabi and the other is herbaceous. So I'm curious to see how they're going to do. It's pretty risky when you're making a shirt for somebody and using colors that you've never used before. But I figured if I'm doing them all in the same tones, so like it's all the same color palette, the monochromatic, it should, in theory, turn out all right. If you're brand new to tie-dyeing, what I'm doing is called ice dyeing, and the method that I'm using is dye under ice, which means I'm adding the dye directly to the shirt before I add the ice to it. And if you're in the Facebook groups and you see the abbreviation DUI, that means dye under ice. And if you haven't joined my Facebook group yet, I highly recommend it. There are a lot of wonderful people in that group sharing their tips and tricks, and it's a way that you can also share your tie-dye so that I'm able to see it. The group is called BelladonnaDyesCo Community Tie-Dye Group, and there is a link for it down below in the description box. It's the link that's right underneath the Etsy link, so click that link and come on over and join the group. Now that I have the first 6 colors on, I'm just going to repeat them in the same order until I get all the dye on the shirt. So I like to use a different spoon for each pot of dye. I don't want to cross-contaminate, and I've been using this same 1 box of spoons since I started dyeing. And I do have links for all of the expensive fancy spoons, but I don't use them. These disposable picnic spoons work perfectly. I just give them a really good rinse in the sink, and then I put them into the dishwasher, and when they're dry, I stick them back in the box. I just recently broke 1 spoon, but other than that, I still have all of them, and when I get takeout food and they give me a spoon, I add them to my box. Now that I have the dye on the project the way that I like it, I give it a quick little sprinkle of soda ash for good measure. The shirt has already been soaked in soda ash, but since we're adding a lot of ice to it, I just want to make sure that the pH stays up around 10.5 to 11. And then I let it batch for at least 24 hours after the ice melts. For this project, I came back and I checked it after the first layer of ice melted. It had decent saturation, but there was still quite a bit of undissolved dye, so I just gave it a second layer of ice, and then I let it batch for the full 48 hours. When I made this shirt, it was at the tail end of winter, so it was still really cold, and I wanted to make sure that it had a chance to have maximum vibrancy and also enough time to let the procion dye bond with the natural fibers. So now it's time for the rinse out, and you want to start by using cold water to rinse away any soda ash that might still be reacting within the fabric, and then increase your water up to hot and rinse until the water runs, pretty much clear. From here, I take it to the washing machine, and I do however many hot water cycles it takes using Kirillon, and it's usually about 2 hot water cycles. Then I do a third and final hot water cycle using Millsoft. And Millsoft is a professional fabric softener, and I get Kirillon and Millsoft both from Dharma Trading Company. Then I'll toss it in the dryer and I'll iron it, and we'll come back and see the results. Well, here it is, guys. Here's our off-center spiral dye under ice method after it's been washed and dried, and I think the shirt turned out beautiful. I don't normally gravitate towards the greens, but I like the shirt a lot. There's a lot going on, and I think it's really pretty. So taking that extra time to tighten down your spiral and work on your pleats really shows in the final product. You can see the definition in each pleat, and that's what makes it dynamic and really stand out. So overall, I'm extremely pleased with the way the shirt turned out, and I'm looking forward to getting towards the greens to swatch them out for the Dharma's Dye Swatch playlist, because a lot of these colors I have no idea what they're actually doing, but I'm excited to find out. So what do you guys think of this shirt? Please leave me some comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, leave a thumbs up, and click the bell and set it to all. That way you get notified of future uploads. And remember, have fun tie-dyeing.